what I do is I look at everything, make sure that we're covered in that sense, and propose a budget amendment based on that. That being said, this amendment's not usually as large as it is for this particular one, but what I wanted to show was also the reduction in revenues. As the state looks at the revenue side, if you're under budget in revenues, they don't really care too much from a budgeting act point of view. But since there was so much going on with the COVID, I looked at all the revenues, looked at all the expenditures, and came up with this budget amendment so that we can get a better understanding where the city is going to be in these particular funds. So what I have for you is, for the general fund, the actual budget amendment is, if you recall, with the omnibus budget amendment, we already did try to address some of the revenue sources. So with that being said, our change in fund balance was a negative 3.1 million. Keep in mind, our original budget, I believe, was a use of fund balance of 1.9 million because of some capital outlay one-time items. So that being said, at the omnibus, we bumped it up to 3.1 million based on some factors. And then with this budget amendment, we're actually adding 9,500 bucks back to it. So it's really like a balance, a net balance. We have decrease in revenue, but we also have decrease in expenditures. And notably, the decrease in revenue is related to a lot of the fees for services, parks and recs, things like that. Obviously, with the COVID-19 being those buildings and services being closed down, they weren't getting any revenue in, so we had to adjust the budget for that and reduce those revenue sources. On the other end, we have expenditures that were lower than budgeted. For example, TSX, things like that, they weren't operating, so their operating expenses were anticipated to be lower, so we lowered those expenses. Retiree healthcare was some good savings in that area, so we lowered that amount. And then also on the other side, that we increased some of the departments based on year-to-date expenditures. So I mean, the analysis really comes down to looking at all the year-to-date activity and then kind of looking at that trend and estimating out for the end of the year. Now, I'm not going to do a budget item for every line item, but I always address those departments where you have those items that potentially could be over budget, and I have those for you guys to review and approve today. That's basically the general fund, though. Based on the omnibus budget amendment, there's really not a change in the net figure, but you have departments that are going to be overspending, some departments underspending, and then you also have decrease in revenue, which is offset by some decrease in expenditure. So that's mainly what's going on with the general fund. The other funds that I am recommending for a budget amendment as well too, and I can go over those real quick, is the major road fund. And specifically in the major road fund, the budget amendment is related to some projects that were not on the omnibus amendment for the Fletcher Park and Telegraph sidewalk. Those items were projects that started in previous fiscal years with delay in billing. Most of these projects are ran by the state or county, and they're very delayed in billing. Those weren't caught during the omnibus budget amendment. So, as like I said, if the account showed zero in March, and then all of a sudden you see a $200,000, we questioned what's going on. We figured out that we didn't account for that carryover, so we have to put on the budget amendment so that we had that expense there. So that's why you see in a major road fund we're adding about another $350,000 in expense related to those projects. Some of the expenses offset by a TIFA contribution, which was approved by TIFA in the previous year, and also was included for on the TIFA's budget that was passed by TIFA. So that's what's going on in the major road fund. Why we need the change there is because we want to account for those expenditures before the fiscal year. Keep in mind we can't change the budget after June 30th, so that's why we need to do it now. We can't do it July 1. So that being said, that's what's going on in the major road fund. Now in the building department fund, as you can imagine, we had to address a couple items. Revenues. Revenues are down significantly April, May because of the COVID-19. The inspections were the trends of inspections were way down compared to prior years and things like that. So I addressed that in the revenue as I anticipated revenue to try to be a conservative approach to see what the June numbers are going to be. From what I hear from the department is that the permits are picking up and they are doing a lot of processing of the permits in June. So I hope for a huge June, but I also like to be conservative when we're talking about revenue. So I addressed that item in the revenue side, and on the expense side, there's only one big capital outlay expense that was addressed on the budget for the backlot security, which is funded mainly through the building department fund. Again, another carryover expense that wasn't caught on the omnibus budget amendment because of some delayed billings from the suppliers or vendors. That being said, and then the last one that affects the general fund as well too is the golf course fund. As everybody can imagine, we discussed it during the omnibus budget amendment, is we're going to keep a close eye on the golf course revenues and or expenditures and see how things are going. So with that being said, I did discuss some stuff with Ian at the golf department. I looked at all the expenditures, I looked at all the revenues, tried to estimate the conservative revenues for the month of June to come up with my estimates for revenue. But you can see it's a large decrease in revenue, but offset by a large decrease in expenditures as the facilities weren't open, operating costs were low, were for wages, salaries, and supplies. So the net effect since our last budget amendment, the net effect was an additional $200,000 estimated shortfall in that fund, which is being budgeted transferred to the golf fund from the general fund. That being said, I like to be conservative, so worst case scenario, the general fund will only transfer what it needs to for that fund to not be in a deficit. So hopefully that it won't be the full amount that's budgeted, which is $750,000. Hopefully it'll be $600,000, $650,000. It all depends on this month's revenue sources. But I like, because this is our last time to do the budget amendment, I like to budget conservative and hopefully overestimate that cost so that at the end of the day, like I said, at the end of the day, we're covered in that shortfall. But I know that, the golf course is open and there seems like they have a lot of play going on, so that's good news for revenues. But again, I can afford to be conservative in my numbers when I estimate because of that. So.
Okay. Is there any other questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
In reference to Fletcher Park, that was a grant, wasn't it?
Fletcher Park was funded partially through a TAP grant. That's correct.
How much was it? You remember?
I don't know.
800,000. How much was it?
450, I believe we have.
And we've used that up. Has that been expended?
I believe that's all been spent. I think that's on its final stage, right? Yeah. Yeah, I believe it's on its final phase. I think there's just a small, like a final bill from the county or state, whoever's head of that project, and we're all set with that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I just got a quick statement. And basically, it looks like most of the directors are here, and to the mayor and you guys, we're starting out in a hole because of this COVID, and we're definitely praying that we get some sort of government assistance to help us out. But I'm asking the administration, I'm asking the directors to do whatever you can to help us. Because if another round of this comes back through, we built that money up for a rainy day, and this is a rainy day, but we don't want to spend as much of that money as we possibly can. The least amount, the better. We understand, at least I understand, that we're going to have to tap into that a little bit to keep the system going. But, I urge everybody to try to do something on your part to look at saving money when it can be saved. So, other than that, all those in favor say yes?
Yes.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Item 27 is a motion to approve July 2020 payroll in the approximate amount of $1,927,000.
Motion. Support.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilwoman Pat, supported by Councilwoman Croft. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Item 28 is a motion to approve Alpha Psychological Services, PC, to perform pre-employment evaluations for fiscal year 2020/2021 funded through General Fund HR Professional Services.
Motion to approve. Support.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilwoman Cross, supported by Councilman Mazura. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. Item 29 is a motion to approve Memorandum of Understanding between Davenport University and the City of Taylor.
Motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilman Remick,
Support.
supported by Councilwoman Winton. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no. Motion carries.